Esophageal perforation. Esophageal perforation is associated with high morbidity and mortality rates. It is an emergency and prompt treatment should be instituted because delayed diagnosis and treatment are associated with a marked increase in mortality rate. Etiology. Iatrogenic perforation secondary to endoscopic procedures such as dilatation of strictures or achalasia is the most common cause. Other endoscopic procedures such as EMR, ESD, POEM may result in leakage if there is transmural disruption and mucosal defects are not closed properly. Spontaneous emetogenic perforation, Burroughs syndrome, results from a sudden increase in esophageal pressure against a closed glottis from vomiting. Perforation from direct penetrating trauma is rare as the esophagus is a deep-seated organ. Blunt external trauma rarely causes esophageal perforation. Foreign body ingestion, especially with sharp objects, may perforate the esophagus. Corrosive ingestion can also lead to transmural necrosis and disruption of the esophageal wall. Patients with EOO may present with spontaneous perforation. Esophageal cancer can perforate, and the prognosis is usually poor since it affects the underlying advanced disease. Presentation and diagnosis. Sometimes the history is obvious, such as after instrumentation or foreign body ingestion. At other times there may not have been any precipitating cause. Patients with Burroughs syndrome may have the classic triad of vomiting, chest pain and subcutaneous emphysema. There may or may not be associated hematemesis. Typically, the site of perforation is the lower esophagus towards the left pleural cavity. Gastric juice as well as ingested food is forcefully ejected into the left chest. A left pleural effusion rapidly accumulates. Physical examination reveals subcutaneous emphysema on the chest wall, sometimes extending to the cervical region as well. In the presence of sepsis, the patient will run a fever, has tachycardia and appears tachypneic. Hammond sign refers to a crunching sound on auscultation of the heart owing to surgical emphysema. Differential diagnoses usually include pneumonia, myocardial ischemia or other intra-abdominal pathologies such as a perforated viscus when the pain is referred to the epigastrium. Patients with cervical esophageal or pharyngeal perforation are usually much less septic than those with intrathoracic perforations and mediastinitis. A typical example would be foreign body perforation, such as by a sharp FSH bone, having lodged at the postcricoid area and perforated the esophagus. There may be a history of foreign body ingestion and neck pain, and physical examination may reveal tenderness and subcutaneous emphysema. Subcutaneous and mediastinal air, pneumothorax, hydropneumothorax and a widened mediastinum may be seen on the chest radiograph, figure 66.5. Contrast swallow study using gastrograph or a non-ionic contrast usually reveals the site of perforation. However, sick patients may not be able to tolerate oral contrast. A CT scan, preferably with intravenous as well as oral contrast, will be able to demonstrate the site and etiology of perforation and the extent of mediastinitis, effusion and collections, figure 66.6. Management. In stable patients with a clear history and contained perforation, sometimes conservative expectant treatment can be successful. This usually applies to cervical, pharyngeal perforation when patients are much less septic. Antibiotics should be given. Patients are kept kneel by mouth and should wait for the perforation to heal by itself. In intrathoracic perforations, patients are usually sicker. They should be resuscitated with intravenous fluid and given antibiotics and oxygen supplement. Electrolyte disturbances are corrected if present. Septic shock. Is treated appropriately. The objectives of treatment are I. Seal the perforation if possible, E. Adequate drainage, and E. Supportive measures, including nutrition, alimentary preferred over parenteral, cardiorespiratory support and sepsis control. in patients with significant pleural fluid and pneumothorax that result in respiratory compromise, a wide-bore chest tube is inserted to the appropriate side for drainage while waiting for more definitive investigations such as a CT scan. Endoscopy can be both diagnostic and therapeutic. The location and size of the perforation site should be ascertained. Foreign bodies are retrieved. Endoscopic sealing of the perforation site with clips and self-expanding metallic stents may be possible, figure 66.33. The stent is usually removed around 4 to 6 weeks later. Healing is expected to have occurred. A nasogastric tube can be placed at the same time for nutritional support. Surgical intervention is indicated in the presence of significant sepsis when drainage is not affected by other means, such as interventional radiology, and no effective closure of the perforation can be done otherwise. These conditions are usually present when the perforation is large, when the perforation is in the intrathoracic esophagus, when the pleura is breached, when there is a large septic load, and when the presentation is delayed. When the diagnosis is delayed, closure of the perforation is unlikely to succeed. Conversion of the perforation into a controlled fistula is another option. A simple way would be to place AT tube through the defect and repair around it, in addition to adjacent drains. With modern supportive treatment, esophageal diversion, cervical esophagostomy, often an end. Stoma is required for effective diversion and OGJ ligation, with later staged reconstruction is rarely needed. Esophagectomy is even more uncommonly indicated, perhaps except for extensive caustic burn with perforation when the esophagus is necrotic. Esophageal perforation filled circle, a potentially lethal condition due to sepsis. Filled circle surgical emphysema, chest pain and vomiting constitute the classic triad of Burroughs syndrome. Filled circle treatment aims at adequate drainage, closure of the perforation site if possible, and supportive measures. Filled circle delayed diagnosis and management lead to high morbidity and mortality rates. Mallory-Weiss syndrome and intramural esophageal hematoma, dissection. Forceful vomiting may lead to a tear at the OGJ, mostly immediately below the squamocolumnar junction. Patients present with hematmesis. Bleeding is rarely severe, and the diagnosis is readily made with endoscopy. Endoscopically, the bleeding can be stopped by adrenaline, epinephrine, injection or endoscopic clips to stop bleeding and close the mucosal defect. Intramural esophageal dissection is characterized by separation of the mucosa and/or submucosa from deeper muscular layers. This most commonly occurs in elderly patients taking anticoagulants or patients with coagulation disorders. It is often precipitated by vomiting. A break in the esophageal mucosa is followed by an increase in intraesophageal pressure that causes separation of mucosa and/or submucosa from the muscle layers. The mucosal break can also be caused by trauma such as foreign body impaction or air insufficiency during endoscopy. Patients present with acute onset of chest discomfort or Mallory-Weiss syndrome and intramural odynophagia. If the hematoma ruptures into the esophageal lumen, hematmesis ensues. When the dissection or hematoma is confined to the esophageal wall, treatment is conservative. Anticoagulation is corrected and the hematoma usually resolves in 7 to 14 days. Caustic injury. Caustic injury to the esophagus can be mild, but also is potentially lethal. Most caustic ingestions occur in children, in whom it is usually accidental, or in adults with suicidal intent. The severity of the injury depends on the type, pH, quantity. And duration of exposure. The substance ingested can be a strong acid, causing coagulative necrosis with eschar formation, which may limit penetration to deeper layers, or strong alkali, leading to liquefactive necrosis. The latter potentially penetrates deeper into the esophageal wall, producing a more severe injury pattern. Diagnosis is usually not difficult. When the injurious agent is identified, it should be tested for its pH, and suicidal attempt considered. Patients may have pain in the neck, throat, chest or even the abdomen. Drooling of saliva, dysphagia and odynophagia can be present. Hoarseness of voice is an important sign to look for as it may signify laryngeal injury and potential airway obstruction. If the airway is judged to be compromised, careful assessment and emergency intubation using epioptic guidance, or even a surgical airway, are indicated. There is no role for gastric lavage or attempts to neutralize the acid or alkali. Initial treatment after securing an adequate airway is supportive, with intravenous fluid, oxygen supplementation and cardiorespiratory monitoring. Once the patient is stabilized, an endoscopy and CT scan with intravenous contrast should be considered. Careful endoscopy allows assessment of the extent of the injury, figure 66.34. The Zerger grading can be used, table 66.2. In general, the longer and more circumferential the injury, the more likely that stricture will form. The stomach is assessed as well for injury, and a nasogastric duodenal tube can be placed with endoscopic guidance. This can be used for alimentary nutritional support. If a stricture forms, there is still a potential route of access through to the stomach. A CT scan can assess esophageal edema and also surrounding soft tissue infiltration. Most costic injuries can be managed conservatively with supportive measures. Deterioration requires surgical treatment, with emergency esophagectomy. The esophagus can be mobilized transientally or via a thoracoscopic approach. Immediate reconstruction is not recommended. A cervical esophagostomy and a gastrostomy can be done and future reconstruction planned. A feeding jejunostomy is an alternative for nutritional support if the stomach also requires resection. Delayed complications include stricture and malignancy. A stricture can form early and may be resistant to dilatation, figure 66.35. There is not enough evidence to support routine use of systemic steroids, intralesional injection of steroid or topical mitomycin C to reduce stricture formation. Endoscopic dilatation should be gradual, as the perforation rate is higher than in other forms of strictures. Long strictures are often resistant to dilatation. Esophagectomy or bypass surgery may be required. Esophagectomy has the advantage of removing the esophagus with its long-term risk of malignancy. However, surgery is difficult because of scarring and adhesions to the mediastinum, thus a bypass operation may be preferable. The gastric conduit is placed in the retrosternal route to reach the neck. When it is also damaged and cannot be used, a colonic interposition is the alternative. The native esophagus can be left in situ as the risk of dilatation and resultant mucosalae is low. Eosinophilic esophagitis (EOO) is defined as a chronic, immune, antigen-mediated esophageal disease, characterized clinically by symptoms related to esophageal dysfunction and histologically by eosinophil predominant inflammation. However, there is overlap with GORD-related eosinophilia and other pathologies that may also be associated with similar esophageal eosinophilia, such as achalasia, hypereosinophilic syndrome, Crohn's disease, celiac disease, vasculitis, pemphigus, graft versus host disease and other connective tissue disorders. The incidence of EOO is increasing, ranging from 0.7, 100,000 to 10.7, 100,000 depending on the population studied. It is predominantly a disease among the white population in Western countries, white versus non-white ratio, 3:1. EOO is believed to commence with food antigen initiation of cytokine-mediated signals that lead to eosinophilia, inflammation and subsequent remodeling by fibrosis. It is a progressive disease, thus, in infants or toddlers, it may present with irritability, food aversion and failure to thrive. In young children, vomiting and regurgitation predominate. In older children or early adolescents, it may present with heartburn and dyspeptic symptoms, while in adults dysphagia and food impaction become the most common symptoms. The peak age of presentation is around 20 to 30 years. There is a clear association with other atopic disorders such as asthma, atopic rhinitis or dermatitis and food allergies. Typical findings on endoscopy include the presence of Figure 66.36 endoscopic appearance of eosinophil rings, furrows, exudates, edema, stricture, narrowing and crepe paper mucosa, figure 66.36. Biopsies of the esophagus show 15 or more eosinophils per high power Feld, HPF. The eosinophilic infiltration is isolated to the esophagus. Biopsies should be taken at a minimum of 2 separate levels of the esophagus together with suspicious areas. Usually gastric and duodenal biopsies are also taken to exclude eosinophilia at these sites. Barium contrast study may demonstrate narrowing and assess the diameter of the esophagus better than endoscopy. Treatment goals include reduction of esophageal eosinophilia to less than 15 HPF and preferably to less than 5 HPF, control of symptoms and normalization of endoscopic findings, although these goals can only be completely achieved in a minority of patients. In children, the disease process is predominantly inflammatory, and associated symptoms such as nausea, vomiting and abdominal pain are relieved with appropriate medical treatments. In adults, reduction in inflammation per se may not relieve the fibrotic component, stricture and small caliber esophagus, and dilatation may be required. Topical corticosteroids are the mainstay medical treatment for EOO, swallowing topically acting corticosteroids such as budesonide or fluticasone is highly effective in resolving symptoms. Systemic steroids should be avoided. PPIs are effective in 40 to 50% of adults through blockage of cytokine release rather than acid suppression. Diet therapy is useful, eliminating gluten, milk, soy, egg, nuts and seafood as the most likely antigens. Endoscopy is used for diagnostic purposes, to monitor treatment progress and therapeutically to deal with strictures. Careful gradual dilatations should be performed, although perforation rates appear similar to other types of strictures. Foreign bodies in esophagus. Swallowed foreign bodies are common and tend to impact at the 3 narrow portions of the esophagus, namely, the cricopharyngeus, piriform fossa, the midosophagus where the aorta, left main bronchus crosses the esophagus and at the OGJ. It is a common problem in children. In adults, it is more prevalent among the elderly with swallowing difficulties, those with dementia, those with unhealthy alcohol use and those with mental health disorders, figure 66.37. Bones from FSH, pork and chicken are common offenders. Incomplete obstruction. Patients may not even be able to swallow fluids or their saliva. A clear history may be volunteered, but in children, elderly and those with mental health disorders the history may not be clear. Complaints should always be treated seriously even though they may sound implausible. A plain radiograph may reveal radio-opaque bodies and should be taken in 2 views. If in doubt, ACT scan is the best method to identify a foreign body. Flexible endoscopy is the mainstay of treatment to extract, using forceps, nets, baskets or a balloon inflated distal to the object. Airway protection may be needed. Sharp objects should be retrieved with the sharp end pointing distally to lessen the chance of perforation. An overtube can be used as needed. Batteries should always be removed as they may cause injury by direct electrical burn or by liquefactive necrosis from lead. Battery content. A food bolus can usually be broken down and either retrieved or pushed into the stomach. Occasionally open surgery is required for foreign body retrieval. Foreign bodies filled circle. Swallowed foreign bodies tend to lodge at the 3 relative constrictions of the esophagus, the cricopharyngeus, where the left main bronchus crosses the esophagus and at the OGJ. Filled circle. Beware of underlying pathology, such as refixed stricture, eosinophilic esophagitis and Schatzki's ring. See miscellaneous conditions. Filled circle. Flexible endoscopy can remove most foreign bodies successfully.